G'day, welcome to Mark and Sam After Work. Today I want to do a video about extreme range shooting, I suppose about precision shooting, and a little bit about the focus and goals of what guys are up to, and try and help, I suppose, a little bit with some of the perceptions that are out there. So what am I trying to say? The goal of trying to, whether it's the extreme spread you're trying to chase, or whether it's the 0.1 or 0.2 MOA group you're trying to find, that and all the testing and wearing things out and trying hard and probably frustration, all those sort of bits and pieces at the 100-yard range, trying to create this to be able to go and do the stuff you really want to do, is probably, I suppose I want to clarify that maybe it's not quite as complicated and as hard as you think it is. And I suppose there's a couple of angles I'm going with. One is the extreme spread comments, the need to pursue this, the need to make that loading better and better and better and try and get down to a single digit or under 5 extreme spread side of things, because I'm going to need that for extreme long range shooting. I'm going to need that for long range shooting. I'm going to need it, otherwise I won't be able to do that sort of stuff. The truth of it is, it doesn't hurt to have a good extreme spread, but it's something I've never focused on, and it also isn't as important as conditions and other things going on there. Yes, you don't want a terrible amount of change in the speed of your projectiles, so loading them consistently with neck tensions, all that sort of stuff, basically sorted out, certainly helps, but it isn't the be all and end all by any means. I certainly can tell you that I have seen, when I have got a lab radar, which I've used deliberately to sort of help show what we're doing on the channel and that side of things, where I didn't have it previously, but I've watched and I've actually got to see that I've seen large elevation changes in some of the shooting without large ES changes. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it'll be a faster shot and it'll go higher, and a slower shot and it'll go lower. Other times it'll be a faster shot and it'll go lower, and it'll be a slower shot and it'll go higher. And it'll be exactly the same, and I still see differences. So what's going on there? Well, there's all sorts of things, and I've no doubt there's people who want to focus, and the barrel tuners and loading development in the way of your seating depths and that sort of stuff. All those things, yes, that could potentially be changing where the bullet's coming out of with the harmonics and all that sort of stuff. But the truth of it is also how the rifle moves can be about this. The thing is, the bit that all that is talking about is really at the group at 100 yards. When you're shooting 500 yards, let alone 1,000 yards, let alone 2,000 yards, let alone 3,000 yards, the conditions have so much more control. And yes, conditions will change your elevation. Wind forward and backwards will change your elevation. Doesn't affect much when you're shooting at 100 yards, but when you go to 500 yards a little bit, once you go out to where the bullet is starting to come down, then a wind that it wasn't fighting really changes how far the projectile goes, and a wind that it was fighting, pushing into, changes how far the projectile goes as well. So your point of impact is definitely moved by conditions. I'll get more into conditions in a minute because more I'm going further. I suppose another one of the drives, and I see very commonly people claiming that their rifle shoots 0 MOA, or not very commonly 0, but I've seen claims of 0 MOA. That's what their rifle shoots, or 0.2 or 0.3, 0.2 and 0.3 all day, every day. They're shooting that all the time. Now, I suppose, I don't want to be rude, but what I'm trying to say, yes, I know those groups and those rifles can shoot that well, and they do shoot that well in probably a moderate number of groups. The truth is, if you really want to sit down with the range and they're shooting, unless they're shooting indoors or at 50 yards or without conditions involved, even if that rifle really does print like a laser beam, conditions are involved. So there's all the other things I would say, from, like I said, from load development or loads to rifle movements, to the fact there's a human shooting them, and we're not, we do make mistakes, things do change, we don't get it perfect all the time. Apart from all those details which sort of says, hey, hold the phone a little bit, the thing is, the moment you shoot with any distance involved, the conditions have control. So if you want to call it where you just ignore that one and ignore that one, call the flyer, okay, we can all end up with 0 MA groups. We'll just go with the ones that we want to pick. But otherwise, I suppose what I'm saying, I'm not trying to say though, guys, don't shoot really awesome, don't have really good rifles, don't group very well, but I would say, you want to tell me it does 0.2 all day, every day, I'm calling because I guarantee you, the moment there's conditions involved, things move. Now for sure, that's expected, and I suppose what I'm really trying to say with that sort of stuff is, for the people who are driven to the fact that I've got to get down to a 0.1 or 0.2 MOA before I can go and do this other stuff, don't worry about it. You know, if you've got a 1/2 inch group and it's consistent at a 1/2 inch group or a 3/4 inch group, depending what the rifle is and that sort of stuff, go and do the ELR stuff. Go and do your whatever you want to do. I shouldn't say ELR, that's who I am obviously, but go and do the stuff you want to do. Go and shoot the 500 yards, the 600 yards, the 800 yards, the 1,000 yards, the 2,000 yards, go and do that. And the reason I say that is learning those conditions, learning how to deal with the conditions you shoot, the actual environment you're going to be shooting in, learning how to read that wind, learning how to read the ground, learning how to read all those things is way, way, way more important than your ES. It's way, way more important than your barrel tuning. It's way more important than even your extreme level of load development. Not saying all those things can't help things, but they have no control out in your extreme long range. I would honestly say there's something that's always been in my head that would go with, I feel that some of the ridiculously accurate groups that I've seen, and I have seen ridiculously small groups at extreme long range. I don't put it down to the fact I'm a brilliant shooter by any means. I put it down to there are good days and bad days, and I have a lot of practice, so I set my rifles up very thoroughly. I don't do much in the way of load development, but I do a lot of making sure my rifle works properly, and I do a lot of work on this thing, on the body, on my physics. But the bit that I would still come down to, on those days there, I feel that sometimes my best groups are actually could almost be mistakes. What I mean by that, I feel there's sometimes when probably I pulled it a little bit to the right and the wind was blowing a little bit to the left and it hit dead center. And you know, I've honestly seen a 3-shot group at 3,000 yards that was 6 inches, I think. And the last 2 shots were 1 inch apart. And I would not for one split second say that rifle can shoot a 1 inch group at 3,000 yards. It did that. Those 2 shots were there, and the shot before was only 6 inches or 8 inches away from that, so it did that sort of stuff. The next shot was only just over, so it was only sort of, by the look of the video, it was only 4 inches off that. It held together really well. But really, if in normal conditions, if you can pull down a 1 MOA group at that sort of distance, you've got things going really well and you've got very stable conditions. It just takes nothing to move it into a 2 MOA group. You don't, if you do your maths, you don't need more than a 1 mile an hour wind change, which wind's changing all the time. So why didn't you see that? So I'd put it more to the point of whether it was me or the load or the rifle or the whatever it was went one way and the wind went the other way and they end up lining up together. And I suppose that's also, I've heard a question recently of I shot this group, which was all around about the 1 or just under 1 MOA, but I had one group that was 0.2 MOA, 3-shot group that was 0.2 MOA. I want to figure out what went wrong with all the other ones. My honest call is, no, when you're shooting at 1,000 yards or 600 yards and you have a 1 MOA group, the conditions are the ones that have control. So I would say in the same thing in that condition. It's probably more that you yinged and it yanged, and that's where your small group came from. And that's not how the rifle groups, it's how that group was. So I suppose, well, like I said, ego can do this. The guys who want to claim this sort of stuff, it's like the fishing stories where there's this bigger, badder fish than everybody else's. Mine's bigger than yours. I get it. It's a decent motivator, that sort of stuff, but don't be pushed too hard by it. Don't hold yourself from taking the next step because of it. Get to where things are functional and really get out and do that stuff. Go and do that long stuff. Don't wear your barrel out trying to find this ridiculously unattainable standard you're trying to get to so you can go and do the other stuff. You get out there and do it. I would also say, if that is what you want to do, if really getting that best group, trying to push it further, trying to learn more, that's what motivates you. Doing more with your loading, getting all the equipment and doing that side of things, that's what motivates you. Any of those bits and pieces, there's nothing wrong with that. But my main call is, I suppose, I would like to see people be a little bit more honest about things in the way of claiming stuff that is physically unattainable in any real sense. If you consider the actual real world we live in, then I'd like to see a little bit more honesty attached to it. Like, this rifle can shoot. When everything goes well, this rifle shoots like this. I'm fully on board with. When it shoots it all day, every day, like I said, I'm not so much. But anyway, and like I said, for people who are pushed too hard by it, yeah, don't be. Get out there and do what you want to do. Learn those conditions, and I'd say for all shooters, in a real level, all precision shooters in any form, and that's even in a 100-yard range, but more so the further you go out further, the more you go out further, the longer distance stuff, those conditions, those winds in particular, air pressures and winds, they have control. They're the big dog on that field. Those are the ones you have to learn how to work with. You cannot change them. They're going to push you around, so you've got to learn how to work with them. Anyway, guys, that's my rant for today. I hope you enjoyed. We'll catch you next time.